What's considered normal in Europe but horrific in America? Underage drinking seems more of a crime in the US. In most cases if a kid is caught with alcohol in the UK, it's just confiscated and poured away. Strictly speaking, the age you can drink alcohol is really low as well, so long as you're home with a parent. I think it's like 5-6. When you're in a restaurant, you're also allowed low percentage alcohol like cider with the meal so long as you're with an adult. I did a study abroad in London my senior year of college. I was obviously already old enough to legally drink in the US, but some of the other people in my program were younger. The first month of the program for them was strictly for going to pubs and buying liquor to drink in parks. I'd if they went to class now. The 21 age limit in the US is from our car-based infrastructure and drunk driving. The federal government actually withheld road funds from states that wouldn't raise the drinking age to 21. Now you have a bunch of college freshmen drinking themselves to death at their first party because they have never had alcohol and it's the first time their parents haven't been watching them. To be honest, I do like being in adult-only spaces in American bars. They're allowed in every pub and bar in the US. Honestly, probably has a lot more to do with since our drinking age is so high, we want to keep teens from stealing people's unfinished drinks. But the bonus of being able to smoke on a bar patio without gassing some kids, I never smoke near children, is a nice benefit. I live in the United States and grew up in a small town. When I was a kid we used to go to bars with our parents all the time. We threw darts, shot pool, and sometimes played those arcade games. But being a small town, the bartenders knew everyone, so even if you were a very convincing-looking 20-year-old you still couldn't get served. We were also given the bottom of a pint of beer from time to time if you were with your dad. Ah yes, when I was working in Germany for a short while, my colleagues were in complete shock and disgust when I told them that I'm buying a home in my country. I'm also European, with a used kitchen, and not planning on changing it to a new one. I was like, why would I do that? Who does that? They said that's just flat out disgusting to cook etc. where someone else used to. I still don't get it. You guys change the tub or shower too? Lol, I would get irritated when a place didn't come with blinds and I had to go by and install them myself. Then, when you move out, you have to decide whether you hate the landlord enough to take these useless blinds with you. What are the odds they'll be the exact right size at your next place? Or whether you want to leave them as a nice gesture to the next tenant but knowing the landlord might jack the rent a touch because of this free perk that they didn't pay for at all. Having to buy an entire kitchen would give me a rage stroke. Doesn't apply to every European country, but prison sentences are a lot shorter. Life in prison without parole is extremely rare and many countries do not have such sentences. For example, the maximum sentence here in Finland is called life in prison, but the average time spent in prison before release is 13-14 years for them. Same in France, maximum sentence you can get is life sentence with no possibility of parole for maximum 30 years, but it's very rarely applied and most likely one day you will get out. Recently a murderer who killed his whole family while faking to be a doctor, was freed after spending 25-26 years in prison. His sentence was life in prison without possibility of parole for 22 years. Same thing in Canada. Until quite recently, the cardholder always had to enter their PIN when paying for something. A few years ago, contactless pay, tap, was introduced and now most cards have a spending limit for how much you can tap pay. Anything over that, you insert your chip and enter the PIN. Restaurants are either pay at the counter or the server will bring a machine. Few days ago in our AskReddit someone told a story how their American relatives got so bent out of shape over naked children running around the beach. On every beach in Bulgaria I've been, naked children is the norm. Women sunbathing in monokini is considered absolutely normal, while naked men are okay only in the nude sections of the beaches, and every beach has a nude section. I was in Croatia back in July, and a tour guide talked about different tourists' attitudes toward nudity. He said Americans are never naked or topless on the beach. Some French and Italians might occasionally go topless. Croatians are similar to the French and Italians. But Germans, the Croatians put signs up on beaches where nudity isn't allowed, and the signs are written only in German. He said the German tourists would be naked as soon as they could see the water otherwise. They really get bent out of shape about naked adults out at the beach. There are nude beaches in the US, but relatively few people go and no one brings kids. The body seems to be so much more sexualized in the US, to the point that even breastfeeding is only just becoming less taboo and only through legislation. On the other hand, there seem to be a ton of creeps, pervs, not by percentage but by there's always one, so I get it. I was studying abroad in Norway when someone came to my door to ask how many TVs I had. I thought it was a student asking for a research project or something. But when they didn't accept when I said 0, I got really confused. I just had a laptop I watched all my TV on. They thought that meant I had a TV and tried to tell me that any TV would be something like $60 or so, and how would I be paying? I can't remember. It's been a long time. I of course was 100% convinced I was being shaken down by a con artist or something. It rose to the level that they came into my apartment, without my permission, and looked around for a TV and was acting like they didn't believe I didn't have one. Eventually they just went away. It was a bizarre encounter that likely wasn't helped by the fact my Norwegian did not expand much past "where is the bathroom, and how are you" at that point. This is also not normal in the UK, but perfectly normal in some European countries on the continent. Being from the UK, I was surprised the first time I went into a hotel spa abroad and literally all the men and women in there were completely at ease with being naked, no attempt whatsoever to cover genitals. When in Rome. This actually varies wildly from place to place. I did my PhD in Finland and belonged to a sauna society there. So, in that context, we'd have gender-specific sauna times during parties/gatherings/conferences, and then optional mixed times. The mixed sauna times were almost always less popular unless it was late after a student party. In the context of close friends or a family, it would be more common to mix genders. I've never seen gender mixing in a public sauna there. However, in Estonia, where my wife is from, I have never seen a mixed sauna even in the context of an extended family. It's always been men together and women together. Little kids go everywhere. Only a nuclear family would mix genders in my experience. I live in Norway now, and though I've just moved, my impression is that most people here cover up in saunas. This would be heavily frowned upon in Finland and Estonia, and seen as unclean. I don't know if this would horrify Americans as I've never heard it discussed, but where I live in Europe, Luxembourg, voting is mandatory and you can get fined for not voting in an election. You can still spoil your ballot, so you don't have to decide between lesser evils if you don't want to, but you have to make the effort to go to the polling station or submit a postal vote. It guarantees a high voter turnout and by extension more representative elections, coupled with a proportional voting system so we're not locked onto a two-party mess like the UK or the US. Not that it's without its issues of course, but I think it's an improvement. Hello, Dutchie here, born and raised. Haven't seen that be done here. However, my wife and I saw it in Sweden, outside the restaurant at the Skansen Wildlife Park near Stockholm, and we were pretty much caught off guard, both by the parents not being right there, and it was around 0 degrees Celsius at the time as well. I'm all for that to be the norm, BTW. I just don't trust people, lol. It started with Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the inventor of cornflakes. He was vehemently against sex and wanted to keep people from enjoying it. It's why he wanted cornflakes to be as bland as possible and was angry at his brother, the founder of Kellogg's, for making them frosted and sugary. He wanted both boys and girls to be circumcised at birth to reduce enjoyment from genitals. Thankfully, the girls' thing never took off, but many Americans' boys have been circumcised without a medical reason for decades with no thought given by the parents, and, of course, it has zero effect on people masturbating. At least in Germany, nudity. No one cares if you're naked. No one thinks you're a sex offender. No one thinks it's even sexual to be naked unless you're actively having sex. And no one makes it weird. You can be naked in public parks to soak up sun, on beaches, swim naked in lakes. Saunas are all naked. Mixed sex areas and spas and saunas are naked with no issues, and in general, it's just not an issue. There's a TV program aimed at children here in Norway where they bring in adults and let the children in the audience ask about their bodies. There was one episode about penises and one about vulvas and so on. In the penis episode they had one guy with a micro penis and one guy with a huge one and so on. They bring in a whole gamut of people and the message is basically that bodies come in all sizes and shapes. It's pretty wholesome. I don't think something like that would dare in the US though. NSFW probably. https://i.imgur.com/pfprvgl.png https://i.imgur.com/vu25byd.png. Heck, in the UK you can get, admittedly very weak, shandy in grocery stores and nobody bats an eyelid. The kind you get in a pub is somewhat stronger but I was still allowed to drink it, was permitted a glass of wine from the age of about 12 onwards and a regular beer from 16 and up. Legal drinking age is 18 but back in the 90s very few pubs checked your age so long as you looked old enough. Apparently they're stricter these days. I'd about Europe. But here in the Netherlands we have a TV program named Spin and Slikken which translates to squirt/inject, same word for both, and swallow. It's about sex and drugs and they educate younger people about literally everything. The people who present the program will try drugs and talk about how that makes them feel. They also talk very open about sex and are not shy to show it. It's a really interesting program TBH, and because they show how to do stuff safely instead of saying don't do drugs and don't have sex, it educates people much better. But yeah, I cannot see Spin and Slikken in America, haha. Taking the bus. There is so much stigma around public transport in the US, especially buses, and in Europe it's just a totally normal way to get around because nobody wants to deal with driving and parking in a big city. Also from an employer's perspective, 25 plus vacation days minimum for all employees and unlimited sick days. The absolute horror. I'm in the US and I've used my fair share of buses to get around. In fact, my city made buses free for everyone. You just get in and sit down, no questions asked. The buses here are terribly inefficient. It takes literally 45 minutes to an hour to get 3 miles down the road. The way the routes are split up, something that would be a 30-minute walk would actually require you to ride to the transit for 45 minutes, and then wait 15 minutes for your next bus. And then it would be another 15-minute ride. So just getting to a grocery store and back again would be an ordeal that takes up half of your day. This is why a lot of hiring managers have flat out told me that they won't hire me if I have to take a bus. It's not considered a reliable form of transportation at all. I'm in the US and I've used my fair share of buses to get around. In fact, my city made buses free for everyone. You just get in and sit down. No questions asked. The buses here are terribly inefficient. It takes literally 45 minutes to an hour to get 3 miles down the road. The way the routes are split up, something that would be a 30-minute walk would actually require you to ride to the transit for 45 minutes, and then wait 15 minutes for your next bus. And then it would be another 15-minute ride. So just getting to a grocery store and back again would be an ordeal that takes up half of your day. This is why a lot of hiring managers have flat out told me that they won't hire me if I have to take a bus. It's not considered a reliable form of transportation at all. Pro-union laws. Pro-worker labor laws. Mandatory paid vacation days, including fines for companies if the workers don't take their vacation days or get them paid out. The need to actually leave work legally for around 25 days a week. Nudity not seen as something inherently sexual. Many people smoking. Edit 25 days per year not per week. My bad lol. Edit 2, typo. Many people I know have electric kettles. Granted, they tend to be immigrants, but still, it's not hard to find them, and they cost like $20 on Amazon. My wife is a coffee drinker, but I'm a tea guy, so I use the kettle a lot. We also use it to preheat water for any cooking since it's usually faster than the stove. Most Americans are coffee drinkers, that's probably why they don't bother getting a kettle. I don't know if this is true, but my French friend says in France you can snap your fingers at the waiter to get their attention. Whether true or not, I don't suggest you do that in America. Edit. So what I can see from the comments is it is not done at all in France or pretty much anywhere. Good to know. Well, that is very different all over Europe though. You need to do lots of paperwork to be allowed to own certain potentially dangerous breeds in Germany, and if you don't have the right papers, the dog might be taken away. But the kill thing is different here, which is also a difference between Germany and the US. I believe Germany has animal rights laws that make it illegal to kill animals without a good reason. What is a good reason varies, of course. Being hungry is a perfectly fine reason to slaughter tons of cows, pigs, chicken. But you can't just kill a dog to get rid of it, only if it is considered a danger that can't be kept under control in any way. Actually, you may not even injure animals without good reason. That includes neutering, though there are exceptions. Cats, for example, that roam outside freely can and often have to be neutered. Dogs usually aren't. When I was studying architecture in Prague, the dorms that turned into a hostel in the summer had co-ed showers with private stalls. Everyone took their shower in the stall and then toweled off in the common area together. By the time summer rolled around, you would have men, women, and children all nude and toweling off together. Here in the States, people are losing their minds about trans people sharing a bathroom. If I am cutting meat with a knife, I will have the fork upside down in the left hand and cut with right. I then eat with the left hand. If it requires food to be placed on a fork in its intended direction, then I use my right hand only with the fork right side up. It would be impossible to eat corn, off the cob, with the tines upside down. I live in the middle of the US. I do not think this is uncommon to do. Being able to show affection towards a cute kid you saw and talk to him, her, or pat his head, back, at least where I'm from, Turkey, it's normal. In US, people go bonkers even if the kid's dad is interacting with the kid. There are normal interactions with kids. Not every interaction has to be either parental or pedophilia. I'm from the UK and got so confused by that one Reddit thread where a load of American dads said they'd been accused of kidnapping their own children. I asked my own dad if that had ever happened to him here, and he looked at me like I had grown two heads. It had never happened to any of his friends either. The only situations I've seen UK dads post online seem to be a racism rather than a stranger danger thing. Mixed-race families where some Karen refused to believe the dad could be the father of kids who looked like a different ethnicity. Is it really that common of a thing over there? When I was in Italy, I wouldn't say blown away, but what really caught me off guard was the dining experience. Being asked for water that contained gas or no gas, carbonated or not receiving a check at the end of your meal. Most places we walked up to the checkout counter, told them what we ordered and paid for that. No tipping. Eating extremely late. No sugary stuff for breakfast. It was all just a complete twist. Being nude in a locker room or sauna. I don't get it, but many Americans rather give a speech at a wedding or have a minor surgery than being naked in place where it is reasonable to be naked. America's cultural traditions are warped from all the religious fundamentalists. It's fine to show rape and mass murder on TV, but heaven forbid a breast. It's fine to have torture porn horror movies such as Saw, but if there's 1 second of penis within an hour of blood and guts, then it gets rated X. Doesn't make logical sense. Trains, public transportation, buses alone aren't enough. Without trains, people wouldn't get anywhere. Cities and towns aren't several hours away. Most are like a 5-minute train ride away. Tons of people live in one town, city but work or go to school in another. Feels like literally everyone has a travel card you can get for an hour, 24 hours, a week, a month, 3 months, a year. There are endless options. Honestly, some places would go to hell without trains these days.